and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Have you ever been that friend when someone I definitely have. We live in an age of skepticism, which is healthy considering the amount of half-truths, misleading headlines, and clickbait we come across every minute of our waking lives. Belief is difficult in a world where we're bombarded by so much information. It becomes necessary for our minds to discard some pieces that don't easily fit into pre-existing boxes. Otherwise, we'd just be overwhelmed. When trying to discern the truth requires reading 4 articles from multiple sources on the same event, how can we truly know what to believe? So in this age of skepticism, how do we discern our beliefs and strengthen our faith? I may not be able to answer this question, but I do think it's an important one, so let's take a journey together. In fact, let's take a very antithetical scientific approach, examine some theories together one by one. Theory number 1, miracles. The anthem today is from the animated movie The Prince of Egypt, and it's a song of joy after the slaves are freed. There's something interesting about the lyrics. There can be miracles when you believe. There can be miracles when you believe. In today's modern world, we're more inclined to stories where the miracle comes first and belief comes second, as is the proper scientific method. Evidence leads to conclusion. But the song posits something else. Belief comes first, and then miracles follow. But then let's take the example of the disciples, God bless them, literally. They walk with Jesus as he performs miracles, and yet their faith is riddled with doubt. The reading from John today is one of several where Jesus tells them that he will rise after his death. And he specifically says, I tell you this now so that when it happens, you will believe. And yet, we know from Easter, when the women tell them that the tomb is open, do they fall on their knees and praise his name? No. They run to the tomb to see for themselves, essentially the equivalent of Googling it. The disciples are constant companions of Jesus, and they see him working miracles on a daily basis. And yet, in Matthew's reading today, we see one of several examples where they doubt him. Jesus walks on water and invites Peter to join him. Peter starts to, and then he has doubts and starts to sink. This actually happens a lot more than you might expect. Jesus performs miracles, and the disciples are like, what? And Jesus says, do you not believe that I'm the Son of God? And they're like, yeah, but I didn't know you could do that. So miracles, where do we stand with this? Maybe not the best answer. We'll come back to it. Theory number 2, death of the mentor and discernment. The hero's journey is a famous method of storytelling, one that I've referenced before, and it's used across multiple genres and formats. The death of the mentor is a key part of the story where the mentor, who started the hero on the journey, is no longer available to help. The hero can no longer rely on their expertise and must do it themselves. There's a natural point in our life when we start to doubt our parents. I'm sure parents will say that this can start as young as the age of 2, but for the most part, we do tend to believe and adopt our parents' worldview until around hitting teenage years, approximately. Religion, politics, values, how we should interact with society, these are all beliefs that we kind of absorb without question for years. For example, I was 13 when I made the decision to separate from Catholicism. Despite growing up going to church pretty much every Sunday, going to catechism, and not really being around people who doubted it. Doubting our parents during this time of growth is a healthy, natural part of life, if a difficult one for all parties involved. We start to see that our parents are people who are flawed, people who aren't necessarily right about everything. We start to shed old beliefs, whether belief in fairies and unicorns or something more profound, like the religion we grew up in, or even faith in our country's leaders. We start to think critically for ourselves, examine who we are, our place in the world, what that means to us, and what we individually value and believe separate from our parents. We create room to discern the difference between beliefs that were placed upon us and our own truly personal beliefs. For another example of the death of the mentor, let's go back to our friends, the disciples. These men, companions of Jesus, they had trouble with their faith even when walking alongside him. It's part of the reason they're so wonderfully relatable and human and why we love their stories so much. Then they experience a very nearly literal death of the mentor. Once Jesus dies and is risen and is gone from the earth, he tasks the disciples, as we hear in John, with spreading the good news of his word without him. Previously, the disciples' job was easy in one sense. They accompanied Jesus, who spread the good word and performed miracles. Now they're on their own. They no longer have him by their side to bolster their own faith. Not only that, but now they're tasked with sharing their belief with others who are skeptical and others who can't necessarily see Jesus and his miracles for themselves. How do you strengthen your faith when your spiritual leader is unavailable? I hope you can see where I'm going with this. Of course, we're all looking forward to Reverend Kirsten coming back. In the meantime, I can't help but feel that as a church, we're experiencing a kind of micro death of the mentor moment and the opportunity that that creates for discernment. In Kirsten's presence, it's very easy to see why we come to this church. She's absolutely incredible. It's easy to take on her beliefs as those of the church community, and even as our own. In her temporary absence, though, we have the space to ask ourselves, as individuals and as a community, what do we believe in? What do we stand for? How do we share this wonderful church with the world without Kirsten by our side? Our opening prayer is language pulled directly from our website. And personally, I think it's a good starting point. A church of the people, a priesthood of all believers, an open and affirming community that believes in a loving God and celebrates diversity. But that's not all to who we are. The question of what we believe as a community is a question that I know leadership grapples with, and it's one that I hope each of you contemplates as a part of being a member of this church. I know I've personally had several conversations with church members who are tackling this question, and I've seen the important work that we're doing together and also how difficult it can be. We're on this journey of discernment as a community and as individuals. Once we shed the guidance and safety of a mentor, whether a parent or a spiritual leader, that opens up the space for these questions. It's also a terrifying thought. What if, once the mentor is gone, all we're faced with is a blank void of emptiness? What if what the mentor is gone, we can't actually stand on our own 2 feet? That brings us to our next theory. Theory number 3, placebo. The placebo effect is a rather wild example of faith and science colliding. According to the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health, NIH, the placebo effect is defined as, quote, a beneficial health outcome resulting from a person's anticipation that an intervention will help, end quote. In other words, in the case of a placebo, someone believing that a healthcare procedure will work contributes to the procedure itself working. A study at Cardiff University, for example, reviewed 8 clinical trials on cough medicine and showed that as much as 85% of the patient's reduction in cough was contributable to placebo treatment rather than the active medical ingredient. In other words, 85% of that effect was contributable to patients' beliefs in the treatment. The placebo effect is so well known, if not necessarily by that name, that it shows up in our stories as well. In Harry Potter, yeah, you thought we were going to get away without mentioning Harry Potter. You were wrong. Ron thinks that Harry has slipped him some luck potion in his drink before a big Quidditch game. So Ron performs with incredible confidence and wins the match. Only Harry never gave him any luck potion. In Space Jam, another example, Bugs Bunny gets the team feeling positive by bottling some water and labeling it Michael's secret stuff, because they're playing with Michael Jordan. Dumbo's mouse friend gives him a magic feather to help him fly. In Peter Pan, of course, all you need to fly is happy thoughts and a sprinkle of pixie dust. Sometimes these things look a lot like miracles. The interesting thing about a placebo is that you can't give yourself one. If I pour myself a glass of water and say, this will make me run faster, it won't work. I won't run any faster. Sometimes our belief, our faith, needs a little help from our friends. In fact, maybe what really matters in these stories isn't the magic feather or the potion, but somebody else believing in us. So where does that leave us with our 3 theories? We have the miracles, death of the mentor and discernment, and placebo. A symbolic death of the mentor helps us give space to doubt. We then need to do the work of challenging what we always thought in order to provide space for discerning what we truly believe as a community and as individuals. And importantly, as we learned from placebos, we also need those around us. When Peter starts to doubt and sink into the water, Jesus reaches out his hand and helps him out. As in the stories, we need the faith of our friends and communities and their belief in us. We need the offerings of miracles, large and small, that arise from the faith around us in order to bolster our own belief, so that one day we in turn can offer our faith and belief to those who are floundering. Together, as a supportive community, we can take advantage of the space offered us in this time and do the challenging work of discernment to discover new miracles and who we are as a church and a community. Amen.